Hey guys, Lori here, pharmacist. So this whole coronavirus thing, been doing a little research. Quite the panic going on here. Lots of videos coming out of China that are supposedly, people risking their lives, risking going to jail. Maybe not risking their lives, but risking going to jail because what they're trying to convince you of is that the Chinese government is not being honest about the real number of cases of coronavirus that are really abounding and how many people have really died. And so these videos are coming out to, let you know that it's way worse than what you think. And, I just gotta be honest with you, man, when things like this happen, my first instinct is to just go like this because I feel that manipulation coming on. I feel that mind control thing coming on where we need you to feel a certain way because that's how the pharmaceutical industry operates. That is their modus operandi. And once you become awake to the whole, how the system works, and you see the patterns, the inevitable patterns that take place and how it's all fear-based, fear-based, fear-based. And yet the scripture says that God did not give us a spirit of fear, but a power, love, and of a sound mind. So I try to work with my sound mind, and I don't get on the bandwagon with them, and I don't follow that track that they want me on. I'm going to stop and I'm going to step back and I'm going to breathe deeply and I'm going to think. So, we've got this coronavirus coming out of a city in China called Wuhan, which incidentally has a biosafety lab level 4 where they study coronaviruses. And in 2017, they were warned that one of these deadly coronaviruses could escape. Now, the same article that talked about that came back and said there is no evidence to show that the Wuhan lab is the source of this deadly coronavirus that we're all supposed to be so afraid of right now. Which I find interesting because if you think about the odds that the place the coronavirus started is out of the same city as a lab that's studying that very coronavirus, that strain. And then the other question is this mutagenic? I mean, we're talking about mutagenic, but has it been helped along by scientists studying, because the whole point of studying all these is so they can develop antivirals and vaccines so that we'll be prepared in the case of biological warfare or whatever horrible thing we have to look, out and be aware that could happen and wipe out the planet. Because what is pharma famous for? Instilling fear and then saving the day, supposedly. Or they convince you that they do. Until you really do your research and you go, wait a minute. All the vaccine preventable diseases that are supposedly so deadly that my infant or child could die of, when I did my research, Dr. So-and-so, I found out that, the incidence wasn't very high. The odds of my child dying was pretty freaking low, like less than 1%. And so I'm just wondering why I should be so afraid of this disease. But they know that you're not going to do that research. Just like most people are just going to run in fear of the coronavirus. But actually, just popped up in 2003. It was the first one. And then they started studying it. And in 2009, there was another one. There was SARS was the first one, severe acute respiratory syndrome. And then in 2009, we had MERS, Middle East, that started in Saudi Arabia, Middle East respiratory syndrome. So, but now we supposedly have a vaccine that's 3 or 4 months out that they might be able to start doing tests. Isn't that exciting? But see, first, if we're going to get people to have uptake of the vaccine, if we're going to have participants for those clinical trials, people that are willing to, they're going to do this thing and test that vaccine. If we're going to get people to sign up for that in mass floods, how do we do that? Well, we have to create fear. We have to convince everybody of how deadly this is, how it's going to wipe out the planet. And then that's certainly going to contribute to the vaccine uptake. Because as we all know, at the end of the day, it's about money. It's about money. I wish it wasn't. I wish they really cared. I wish there was a reason that we really needed to be studying these coronaviruses instead of, focusing on teaching people how to get well, revamping our healthcare system. But sadly, none of those are priorities. We're looking on the horizon for ways to make money. Another thing about the vaccine preventable diseases, the deadly ones that affect less than 1% each and every one of the U.S. population as far as being deadly. Morbidity, it's higher, but even the morbidity, which is the incidence of the disease, is not that terribly high when you start researching. Of course, all the vaccines and the way they push them, you would think it's around every corner, and 1 out of 10 children were dropping dead. Not the case at all. I've started to think that what they base vaccines on is what they can grow in a petri dish. Is it this strain of the coronavirus that they finally, is it GMO? Is it this strain that they finally were able to develop a vaccine for? So, of course, they had to unleash it on the public, let it spread, create hysteria, and then shazam, money maker. I don't know. Inquiring minds want to know, because when we're dealing with pharma, we're dealing with really upstanding bunch. Serial convicted felons, murderers, cheaters, liars. That's who we're dealing with, people. So if you think that this whole coronavirus thing is as it seems, I don't know what it actually is, but I can tell you it is not as it seems. It never is with pharma. They're out for money. That's what it's all about. Sorry to say. But it is what it is. The truth will be known. They will sell God only knows how many zillions of vaccines. And then if you didn't have the coronavirus, you will. Because it'll be injected into you, okay? So, good times. Anyway, we'll see how it all plays out. That's what I'm saying about it, though. All right, talk soon.